Thanks, Heidi, and thanks everyone for inviting us to be here this morning and to share with you. I was saying to Heidi this morning, I was like, I don't know if anyone from Hidden Acres has ever come out to Community Mennonite to share. Maybe that's not a true statement. In my 12 years that I've been at camp, I don't know if we've come up here. So it's great to be able to come up and share. It's good to see some familiar faces. Some past staff who have worked at camp over the years, and obviously, like Heidi said, Amanda's got a number of connections here. So it's good to be here. It's good to connect and share with you this morning. And I thought, because you may not know us very well, just to do a quick little introduction, it's going to be a very quick journey of an introduction. But I grew up in New Brunswick. That's home for me. And came to Ontario to attend Redeemer University. Well, it used to be college, now it's just university down in Hamilton. And my time there, I learned about this place called Hidden Acres and came up and worked for a couple of summers in my university years. Amanda also worked at Hidden Acres. She grew up in New Hamburg, so she's local to this area. But that's where we met, was at Hidden Acres. But we didn't date or anything like that. We were not a camp relationship. We were good summer staff. We didn't break the rules. And so when we parted ways and we went off in our different directions, graduated from university, I went and taught English in Japan, and Amanda graduated from nursing school and was a nurse. I came back to Canada. And in that journey, we reconnected and came back. I got married to Amanda. Then we went back to Japan for 4 years, and we taught English and served over there. And then in 2010, we moved back to Canada, and we started working at Hidden Acres full-time. And so most of the last 12 years, we have been in roles that support the programs at camps. I've been the program director for the majority of those 12 years. And so running summer camps and retreats and outdoor ed, and Amanda's served as our single moms camp coordinator and helped to facilitate our housekeeping staff and just keeping the place running smoothly. And then, as Heidi mentioned, just in the last couple of weeks, we've had some transition at camp, and I applied and was offered and accepted the role of executive director. And so moving into a new phase of life at camp and looking forward to serving in a new capacity there. And Amanda continues to coordinate our single moms camps, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that in a little bit, and occasionally cooks for groups. So she keeps busy. And then Heidi referenced our two kids, Hannah and Ben, that we get the privilege of raising, and we call camp home. So that's just a little bit of our journey. You can ask more questions if you'd like. But this morning, we wanted to take some time to do a couple of things. Back when I was talking with Darlene when she extended the invitation, she asked for an update of what's been happening at camp, the journey over the last couple of years through COVID and how that's impacted us and our ministry. And so we want to share a little bit about that. But then we also want to talk a little bit about the value and the importance of welcoming those on the margins, and why that's important to us and what it looks like for us at Hidden Acres. So just to start with a little bit of an update about the last couple of years, it's been difficult, like it has been for everybody. We've all journeyed through COVID, and it's impacted us all. I don't think any of us can say it hasn't impacted us. We could probably create a long list of the challenges and the trials and the fears and the worries and the sorrows that we've all experienced over the last couple of years. At camp, some of the things that would fit into that column, we didn't run summer camps for the first time in 60 years. We're celebrating 60 years at camp this year, and so for the first time ever in 2020, we didn't run summer camps, and that was very new for us. That's how we started as an organization, and so it was very strange that first summer hiring 4 staff as opposed to 40 staff. And trying to figure out how can we serve the community safely in the midst of all of the unknown that we were experiencing. And then last year, again, no overnight camps and just day camps was a very big change for us. We would welcome typically around 10,000 people a year to our facility at Hidden Acres. And so to go from that to barely 3,000, and the majority of those people just visiting our grounds and being outdoors, no one coming into our buildings or our retreat centers. The vast majority of our groups either unable to because we were shut down or not feeling safe enough to come and meet together with others from different households. Having to lay off staff It's never a fun time when you have to say to a staff person, sorry, we can't employ you anymore. Those are hard conversations. Uncertain of where money's going to come from. You know, we're a big organization, and you need money to run organizations. And as much as we're a ministry, we're also a business. And when you don't have a source of income, you kind of go, how are we going to do this? What's it going to be like? And so the uncertainty and the fears and the worries around that, those are all valid experiences. Those were all true and real for us. Your experiences were valid and true and real. They're hard, and I don't want to minimize the challenges that we've faced because they're important for us to process and work through and deal with. However, this morning, I don't want that to be the focus. I don't want that to be what you take away from this conversation. In the midst of the challenges, we have seen God work in some pretty cool ways. God has worked and moved and provided miraculously. And my hope is that you also will have a story that can reflect how God has worked in your life through the last couple of years and done some good. So, what are some of those examples? With the lack of what we typically would do going on at camp, it really forced us to think creatively. How can we serve? How can we connect with the community? What can we provide? How can we use our facilities or our resources or our experiences? So we did things like camp in a bag. We sent camp home to people. The first summer, we couldn't welcome people to us, so we sent camp to them. And it was an opportunity for us to provide camp and then also raise some funds for Hidden Acres. In the fall of 2020, when we had empty buildings again, but also talking with families of young adults who have special needs and disabilities, we thought, how can we use our buildings in a safe way to serve these families who their programs and the opportunities that they had to be a part of Safe Community were no longer operating? We started a program called CLASP, a Community Life and Skills program. And so we invited some of these folks out, and they spent every Monday with us for the fall of 2020 and the spring of 2021, and then we started it back up in the fall, and we're running it currently now. And so it's given us an opportunity to meet a need that, if we go back even beyond 2020, we had families saying, we would love our young adults to come to camp and to do stuff. What can you do? And we never felt we could fit it into what we had always done. But because now we had this different opportunity, because we were quiet and not busy, we were able to create CLASP and now serve those folks in a new way. And our hope is that we'll continue as we get busy again to fit those folks in and be able to find space at camp in the midst of the busyness so that they can continue to be a part of the community at camp. Personally, for us as a family, we found ourselves with time to be together. And sure, there are hard days when you're raising, 9 and 10 and 11-year-olds, and sometimes it doesn't always work out well, and you have frustrating moments, but just really great opportunities to connect. We're summer camp directors. That's our life, and we hadn't taken summer vacation in 10 years. So to be able to take a week off in July and go camping as a family for the first time with our kids was one of the hidden blessings of COVID, just to be able to spend a summer break together, to be able to borrow a friend's cottage for a long weekend and spend time with our kids as a family. Those were some of the hidden blessings for us and for the camp. We saw God provide for us. There were a number of times throughout COVID where Marianne, who runs our office, she's our office manager, she'd say, wow, I'm not sure why this really shouldn't be how it is, but at the end of the month, we still have money in the bank. And she would often reference the woman with the jars of oil who would, Elisha challenge her to go and collect the jars and take your little jar and fill all the others. And it was sort of like that, where money would continually go out, but there was always money in the bank account. And so God provided. We never had to really fear or worry about how we were going to meet the needs or the responsibilities we had as a camp. And that really comes down to extremely generous donors. We're so thankful for the community that surrounds us at Hidden Acres, that sees the value of what we do and says, we want to support you. So families who had paid fees for camp in 2020 saying, we offered refunds, and they said, nope, keep that money. We know you can use it. Or people just out of the blue saying, here's a donation. God has been good to me this year. We want to support your work. And so we've really seen God work in some really neat ways and provide for us in some really neat ways. And now as we look forward to the coming months, we're really, really excited to be able to welcome folks back to camp. It's been a long road to opening up our facilities again and meeting all the regulations and requirements that we've had to as sort of a public meeting space. But the last month or so, March, has been not quite as busy as typical, but we're slowly welcoming groups back. And this is our last quiet weekend at Hidden Acres for the foreseeable future. From here on out, we don't have very many days where there won't be somebody at camp. And so we're very, very thankful to be able to welcome people back, that churches and groups and community organizations are feeling safe and comfortable to return to gathering together, and that they're wanting to come back to Hidden Acres and be there. We're excited to start our programs back up. We weren't sure what was going to happen with our outdoor ed programs with schools. That's a big part of our May and June and September and October seasons. And school boards are going to be doing trips again this year. Nothing overnight, which changes things a little bit, but they're going to be allowing day trips. And so we're excited to welcome schools back in May and June, and we're back to running 9 weeks of camp and a blend of overnight and day camps again. So we're really excited to be able to jump back into some of the typical rhythms that we have known and be able to blend that with the rhythms of the last couple of years. And it's neat to see, I was looking at some of the statistics of where we're at in 2018 and 2019, comparing to this summer, like camper registrations, and we're well ahead of where we were a couple of years ago this time of year. So it's neat to see how excited families and kids and children and youth are to come back to camp this summer. One of the challenges that we're facing, and this is something that we would invite you to be praying for us, and really all camps, because I know it's not just us as I talk with other camp directors. This is a reality that we're all facing, and really it's sort of in every business. I don't know many businesses that aren't experiencing challenges with staffing, but that's one thing when I look ahead to this coming summer. I'm like, we've got campers, we've got programs, but will we have the young people to run our programs? And I've been doing this long enough that I know that God will provide. He'll either provide the right number of people or the creativity to use those people in creative ways. But we're behind where we typically would be. And it would be great if the right people were to come along. And we know that they will. But we invite you to pray for us as we journey towards hiring the staff we need. So we're looking forward with expectation and hope. We're very excited for what's to come and how God is going to work. So that's a little bit of an update on what we've been doing and what's been happening at camp and what's to come. And I want to shift gears to talk a little bit about welcoming those on the margins. And starting with a little bit about what do I mean by on the margins? What is that definition? When we think about marginalized, the word marginalized is defined as a person or a group that is treated as insignificant or peripheral in our lives. And when I think of the word margin, the first thing that comes to mind is on a piece of paper, right? That space on the edge, on the outside. So you have the content in the middle, but you've got that gap on the outside. And so I always think of those who aren't in the middle, who aren't involved. Those who find themselves on the edges of our societies, on our communities. They're often people who are under-resourced, who have inherent disadvantages because of the lack of the access they have to resources. And sometimes those are intentional, but often they're not. And so for our context at camp, when we think about those on the margins that we invite in at Hidden Acres, we think about our children and youth that we receive from partner organizations, from community agencies. So organizations like House of Friendship or Family and Children's Services or Family Services Perth Huron, those types of organizations that refer children and youth and families to Hidden Acres to say, we see what you're doing and we value that and we want the kids that we support to be a part of what's going on there. Children, youth, and young adults with special needs. That's been a big part of what we've done at Hidden Acres for easily the last 40 or 50 years. Creating space intentionally within our programs, creating programs intentionally for those folks so that they have space to be a part of safe, welcoming community and can enjoy access to everything that other children have as well. And low-income single moms and their kids. And Amanda's going to talk a little bit more about our single moms camp, so I'm not going to talk too much about those. But why is it important for us to welcome those on the margins? The first word that comes to mind is justice. It's a justice thing for us. Seeing people who are unseen within our communities in a way that Jesus sees them, that Jesus modeled. Seeing their value, creating equitable opportunities, and inviting them in. And there's so many examples throughout the story of the Bible where Jesus does this, and where other people in the Bible do this. So Elijah in 1 Kings and Elisha in 2 Kings, where they welcome in a widow or they heal a man with leprosy. Jesus healing the two blind men at the edge of town. Jesus healing the woman who suffered from hemorrhaging for 12 years. The story of the prostitute who anointed Jesus' feet with oil from her alabaster jar. Those are all examples, and just a few of them, of how Jesus welcomed or engaged with or served those on the margins of their communities who the community said, you don't really belong here, you don't have a place because of X, Y, or Z. And Jesus said, no, that's not really the way it should be, and this is what we need to do. And as Heidi read this morning, Micah 6:8 is a verse that often comes to mind when I think about welcoming those on the margins and the challenge for us to act justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with our God. It's a significant part of our mission statement and our core values as an organization, welcoming diverse groups of people to experience life-giving connections with God, each other, and nature. And so our core values, what drives us as an organization, as a ministry, is to create space for those people from all sorts of different communities and walks of life to be a part of what's going on at camp. And so it's important for us. And my hope is it's important for you as well. I talked a little bit about some of the programs, so I'm just going to offer an opportunity for Amanda to come up and share about Single Moms Camp and share some stories from that program.
Thank you. Thank you for having us. I'm glad to be here and to see some familiar faces. I have to find where I am now. Okay. This year, let me just see. Each summer I help coordinate 2 separate weeks of camp for low-income single moms and their children. We define a single mom as being someone without any live-in partner or support. We charge the families $30 for mom, $30 for first child, and $15 for any additional children. However, the program costs approximately $1,500 per family each week, which means it's obviously highly subsidized by donations from individuals, churches, grants, and our own Hidden Acres Camper Subsidy Fund. Every year we're amazed at how funds are provided and walk away so very thankful. We see deep value in providing an affordable experience for these families and believe that by giving them this opportunity, it can provide esteem and dignity for oneself, knowing they're able to provide this for themselves and their kids. For some families, this is a lot. It's always a reminder to me as to how privileged I really am, how privileged we really are. I don't have to set up a payment plan for $60 to be able to take my kids on a little vacation. This program grounds me. As a woman who is privileged, I have the opportunity to create a week that strives to remove the lines, that allows for no judgment. This allows women to be a part of a healthy community, encouraging one another, reminding one another of that their lives are valuable. This year was Hidden Acres' 40th year of running Single Moms Camp. As I reflect on this, a few vivid thoughts come to mind, like how many families have stepped foot on the property over those 40 years, How many flailing legs and arms have done actions to crazy camp songs? How many cups of coffees have been made and enjoyed over good conversation? How many thrift store trips with vanfuls of moms? How many tears shed? How many belly laughs? How many hugs and how many sad goodbyes have happened over the years? What an absolute gift to reflect upon. How these families have made an impact on Hack, each other, and our staff is something that many still think of years later. I know I do. The Beatitudes in Matthew 5 have been held very close to my being these past couple years for many reasons. We all live in the same big world, one that is so deeply broken, yet at the same time can be a place of deep joy and hope. I've always interpreted the blessed at the beginning of each promise as presence, the deep presence of God. Blessed are they. The Beatitudes have the power to remind us that regardless of who we are and what we endure, we are seen and not forgotten. That we are not less than because of our existence. I have witnessed time and time again the effect this can have on the most beautiful single mother families that come to camp. Single Moms Camp reminds me that not one of us is better than the other. It reminds me of the importance of safe spaces and that God is in all things and all people. It reminds me of the power of listening and hearing the story of another person. It reminds me of the power of belonging and that joy and pain can in fact coexist, just like Jesus expresses within the Beatitudes. We don't have to look very hard as a camp day passes to see moments of joy. A mom last year said her biggest take-home of the week was just this truth, that joy can happen in her life without feeling guilty. Life is messy, and so much needs healing and hope, but moments of joy can live alongside it. Joy and pain can, in fact, coexist. Lindsay, who has given me permission to use their names, a mom of a sweet girl named Abby, has attended the program for over the past 3 years. I remember her first year so well. She always wore a hood up over her head and most of her face. She cried almost the entire week. Every time we would sing, chat, meet as a group of women who would share such common lives, she just quietly cried. We welcomed it. We provided a space for her to feel safe enough to do so. So there I was, just thinking she was a beautifully emotional person, which I love. I'm an emotional person. Every day I would notice her hood be taken down a little bit for a little bit longer of a time period, like walls starting to fall. At the end of the week, she pulls me aside and proceeds to tell me that she hasn't cried in over 15 years. A soul so hardened and broken by abuse and abandonment at a young age. All of a sudden, stepping into a place and a space that was safe and welcoming. All she could do was cry, and coming into the week not even knowing she needed to because she had put up so many walls upon her past. I cried with her, I listened, I hugged her. I remember going home that evening so thankful that we're able to provide a new space in Lindsay's life, a space to start to heal, which brought about new beginnings and opportunities for her. She saw the gospel lived out in a non-intrusive way. For someone who has endured such trauma, I believe this is to be of such importance that they may experience Jesus through us in a gentle way, as if saying, take your time, I am here, ready to care for you, and you are. She started college because, I'm going to cry. You have to read it. In her words, she says, I'm a terrible cry talker, so I'm sorry if you can't understand me. Campus gives me the ability to, even for a small window, believe that I'm worth it. I'm not worthless. And maybe school can help me see that too. People see the best with what they know. They do the best with what they know. It's one of my favorite quotes. Lindsay now knows a new truth in her life, simply because she feels seen and valued. This past February, I received a text that said, "Guess what? It's official. I'm a college graduate with honors." I sat and cried. She then proceeded to say, "Hey, when I come to camp, can you learn and sing this song for us?" This woman who hated, yes, her words, hated God for what she endured. Abuse, abandonment, no family. And she asked for a song that speaks of God's deep, transformative love. A love that is gentle, kind, and does not abandon her. Lindsay continues to text, because that's what they just all text, because it's too hard to call these days, right? Camp has brought me closer to God. Thank you, Heidi. Camp has reminded me of my purpose. Camp has shown me kindness, gratitude, and unconditional love. Camp has allowed a safe space for me to be myself with no judgment. Camp has allowed me to cry and feel my feelings. Camp is a safe space. Camp has allowed my daughter to flourish and have fun. Camp has been supportive and shown me I'm not alone in my pain. And neither is my child. In all caps, Camp rocks. That's how she ended. You see, Lindsay and I never really had an in-depth conversation about God. Never. She did not want to and was very open about that. What she did experience was a healthy community rooted in Christ's love. A faith that is inclusive, not intrusive. What a beautiful reminder as we welcome those whom society thinks is less than. God sees them, walks alongside them, and he uses us all to transform lives just by welcoming them in. My encouragement to you, to us, to all of us, as we continue to move forward in such unsettling times, is to intentionally ask yourself where you fit within the Beatitudes. Where can you be the presence of God to someone? How can you remind someone that the kingdom is indeed theirs as well? In what small way can you allow someone to feel seen? Someone who may face marginalization on a daily basis in our society. May this be an encouragement to you to move forward. And may we all remember that when we simply welcome someone in need, joy and peace can enter in. And for these moms, self-confidence and esteem. May we see your kingdom here on earth, God. May we see it here.